When we think about cybersecurity, we usually picture someone breaking into a server, right? Well, forget that for a second. Today, we're talking about a whole new frontier, hacking the very mind of artificial intelligence itself.
So, how is something like that even possible? Let's kick things off with a story about an AI assistant, one that was designed to be helpful, but got tricked into becoming a tool for something way more malicious.
And this? This is exactly what happened to an app called Decision Eye. You see on the left, that's what it was supposed to do, give you thoughtful advice. But look at the right. That's what researchers tricked it into doing, spitting out a guide for a phishing email. I mean, that's completely against its core programming.
So that just begs the question, right? How could a really sophisticated AI, something built with safety guards, be so easily duped? The answer, it turns out, is a brand new kind of attack. And to figure that out, we've got to look under the hood and really dissect the anatomy of this digital deception. It's a technique that's, surprisingly simple, but just devastatingly effective.
Okay, so the technique is called prompt injection. And what that means is you're basically feeding the AI this super cleverly written set of instructions that makes it completely forget what it's supposed to do and follow your new, malicious orders instead. And get this, the security world is taking this so seriously that OWASP, that's the Open Web Application Security Project, they now list it as the #1 security risk for large language models. That's a huge deal.
The idea here is actually kind of brilliant, and it's inspired by classic web hacking. The whole key, as the slide says, is tricking the AI into confusing data with a command. So you're not trying to break in from the outside, you're injecting a hidden command from the inside.
Right, so this is the absolute core of the trick. An AI assistant is programmed to see your question, your input, as data that it needs to analyze. But this attack, it shatters that context. It fools the AI into seeing a part of your input not as data anymore, but as a brand new command that just overrides everything else.
So researchers actually perfected this with a method they call UUE. It's basically a 3-step recipe. First, you have a normal-looking query, just to blend in and look innocent. Then you have the secret sauce, a special separator phrase that breaks the context. That's the magic trick right there. And finally, you have the disruptor, which is just the new malicious command you actually want the AI to run.
So, you might be wondering, just how well does this actually work? Well, get this. The HowUE method had an insane 86.1% success rate when they tested it against 36 real-world apps. And we're not talking about some obscure research projects here. This worked on major platforms that millions of us use every single day, including a big one like Notion. This is not a theoretical problem.
Okay, so it's really important to understand that this goes way beyond just tricking chatbots into saying funny things. This attack on the AI's mind is actually the key to a much, much larger and honestly more dangerous security battlefield.
The threat just explodes. It gets exponentially bigger when we're not just talking about an AI that writes things, but an AI that can actually do things. This is what we call an agentic AI, a system that can use tools, access your email or query a database, all by itself.
Now, to really wrap our heads around these new risks, security experts came up with this 5-layer model. Think of it like an onion. It starts with the AI's core reasoning, right at the center, and then it expands outward through its tools, its actions, and finally, the data it creates. It's basically a blueprint for all the ways an agentic AI can be attacked.
And this is the really key part. Prompt injection, that attack we've been talking about, it hits layer 1, the AI's brain. And once an attacker has control of the brain, well, they can compromise the entire system. They can make the AI misuse its tools, tamper with its own settings, the whole shebang.
Okay, let me give you a scary but very real example of how this plays out. In this attack, the hacker didn't touch a single line of a tool's code. No, instead, they just changed its description. They added this fake compliance rule telling the AI it must use an email tool to send all its data to a security monitoring endpoint. But guess what? That endpoint was just the attacker's email address. And the AI, just trying to be helpful and follow the rules, it just obeys.
All right, so if these are the kinds of mind-bending threats we're up against, how in the world do we defend against them? Well, the answer isn't some single silver bullet. It's a strategy called defense in depth, with protections at every single one of those 5 layers we just talked about.
Okay, so let's build this digital fortress layer by layer. First up, for prompt and reasoning, you can use a second AI that acts like a semantic firewall, basically checking all incoming prompts to see if they're malicious. Then, for the tool layer, you use cryptographic verification.
That's just a fancy way of saying you make sure every tool the AI uses is digitally signed and hasn't been messed with. For execution, you make the AI's configuration immutable, which means it can't be changed on the fly. Down at the network level, you lock things down with strict authentication like MTLS, so the AI only talks to systems it's supposed to. And finally, for data, you use automated tools to find and scrub out any private information so it never, ever leaks. See? Every layer gets its own shield.
All right, let's zoom out one last time. We've covered a ton of ground here, from these simple prompt injection tricks to these really complex layered defenses. But what's the one crucial point, the big takeaway from all of this?
It's this. We are right in the middle of a massive paradigm shift. We're moving from AI that just writes things for us to AI that actually does things for us. And in this new world, securing the AI's decision-making process, its mind, that's not just a nice-to-have feature. It is the new front line of cybersecurity, period.
And that leaves all of us with a really critical question for the future. As we start handing over control of our emails, our finances, and our data to these AI agents, how do we build systems that we can truly, genuinely trust to follow our intentions and not the hidden commands of an attacker lurking in the shadows?